October 7, 2025. U.S. Marshals show up at a diesel shop in Utah, and everything that took a decade to build starts falling apart in real time. $13 million in lawsuits and penalties. A divorce filing 5 months later. A business partner gone silent. And 2 guys who once looked inseparable now living completely different lives. How does something that big collapse that fast? Let's go back to where it all started. 2 guys named Dave walked into a church singles event in Utah one night looking for nothing special. Maybe a few new friends, a good conversation, something to fill the evening. They walked out having unknowingly changed everything. Dave Sparks had already dropped out of college after 1 semester, trading classrooms for diesel engines and mechanical chaos that most people would walk away from. Dave Kiley, on the other hand, didn't just like trucks, he lived inside that world completely. When they started talking that night, it wasn't small talk. It was instant recognition. Same obsession. Same energy. Same refusal to treat machines as anything ordinary. And that kind of connection doesn't fade. It compounds. Not long after, they opened a small repair shop in Woods Cross, Utah. No investors.
No cameras.
Just 2 guys with grease under their fingernails, building and fixing diesel trucks late into the night. They started filming what they were doing. Wild builds, impossible stunts, trucks doing things they were never designed to do. People watched. Then more people watched. The Discovery Channel came calling, and by January 2016, Diesel Brothers was on television screens across the country. What started as a local garage project was now being broadcast to millions. 7 seasons. Household names. Kids recognized the trucks. Adults quoted the builds. The chemistry between Heavy D and Diesel Dave looked effortless, like they were born into the same storyline. But here's the thing, when something looks that smooth from the outside, what's actually holding it together underneath? Because success was quietly adding weight to everything they touched. Bigger builds. Bigger money. Bigger attention. And with that came pressure no garage in Utah could have prepared them for. The first crack didn't come from a rival or a bad deal. It came from a group of doctors in Utah watching their television show and realizing what they were seeing wasn't just reckless, it looked illegal. In 2017, Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment filed a lawsuit alleging that Heavy D and his team were modifying diesel trucks in ways that disabled emission systems, producing the kind of heavy black exhaust associated with rolling coal. For these doctors, this wasn't entertainment. It was deliberate pollution being broadcast to millions. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Their own TV show became part of the evidence. Every exaggerated rev, every plume of black smoke captured on camera wasn't just content anymore. It was documentation. Footage from Diesel Brothers was used to support claims that emissions controls were being bypassed during builds featured on the show. By 2018, a federal injunction had already escalated things, restricting further modifications that violated the Clean Air Act. But the operations kept moving in ways that kept them inside legal fire again and again. By 2020, the financial consequences were no longer theoretical. Over $761,000 paid to the federal government. $90,000 more to Davis County. Nearly another $1 million in legal fees. And on appeal, the court described the conduct in unusually direct language, calling it flagrant misconduct. That phrase doesn't show up in routine regulatory disputes. It sounds like a pattern that kept going even after warnings. The original lawsuit had soared up to $114 million. Even the reduced outcome was enough to mark a permanent shift. So here's the uncomfortable question. When your entire brand is built on pushing machines to extremes, where exactly do you draw the line once the law steps in and says stop? The next it didn't come from Utah. It came from Italy. Diesel S.p.A., an Italian clothing company with over 50 years of history, had built its entire identity around one word. And the Diesel Brothers merchandise line, Diesel Power Gear, was built on that same word, tied directly to the show's growing popularity. What looked like casual branding to fans became a legal trigger the moment ownership got disputed. Diesel S.p.A. filed a federal trademark infringement case, arguing the merchandise was creating confusion and leveraging their established name. By 2023, a court found the business entities liable and ordered $11,800,000 in damages. The original request had been closer to $59 million, reduced by about 80%, but even so, that number didn't land softly. Stack it all together. Environmental penalties. Legal fees. Now a trademark judgment. Media summaries were already rounding the total exposure to roughly $13 million. And it stopped looking like isolated incidents. It started looking like collision after collision with the law, coming from completely different directions. Every revenue stream now had a shadow attached to it. October 2025. Heavy D is on camera walking through what looks like a massive business restructuring. Millions in custom trucks, equipment, and inventory being put up for sale. Fans treated it like a pivot. A reset. Just another bold move from the Diesel Brothers brand. But inside legal circles, it looked different. It looked like liquidation under pressure. And liquidation doesn't start when you want it to. It starts when someone else forces the timeline. A federal judge stepped in and halted parts of the garage sale mid-process, concerned about asset movement during active enforcement. Then, on October 7, 2025, U.S. Marshals arrested Heavy D for contempt of court, tied to unpaid financial penalties totaling over $843,000. The same man who built his identity on controlling machines and chaos was now being physically escorted under federal enforcement. And get this, the confident announcement just days before, the one that looked almost upbeat, didn't age the way it was meant to. Viewers would later revisit it and notice something underneath the surface. A kind of pressure that was already past the point of control. After the arrest, Diesel Dave goes completely silent.
No explanations.
No joint appearances. No continuation of the public rhythm that once defined them. The original show had already ended in 2023, not by cancellation, but by choice. Both sides had agreed to step away from Discovery Channel in favor of YouTube independence. That detail matters, because it reframes everything. The split between Heavy D and Diesel Dave didn't start with the arrest. It had already happened earlier, quietly, structurally, in the decision to leave television behind. The arrest just made the silence permanent. Two guys who built their entire identity on being inseparable in public, separated not by betrayal, but by courtrooms and disappearing communication. 5 months after the arrest, the next collapse didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened quietly, inside a Utah courthouse filing. On March 10, 2026, Ashley Sparks filed for divorce. By that point, Heavy D had already gone through an arrest, ongoing legal pressure, and a shrinking sense of control over everything he had built. Now the personal structure around him was breaking too. 5 months is not a long gap when you look at what happened inside it. Federal enforcement one moment. A marriage legally dissolving the next. No long separation.
No gradual breakdown.
Just pressure stacking fast enough that each event runs directly into the one before it. But while his world was collapsing inward, another version of his life had already quietly started shifting direction. Back in February 2024, Heavy D had acquired rights connected to the cancelled Nikola Badger project, a hydrogen electric pickup concept that Nikola Corporation scrapped when it shut down. Those rights became the foundation of EMBBR Motors, a clean energy venture focused on hydrogen and electric vehicle development. The man once known for diesel smoke and rolling coal was now building toward zero-emission systems. That contrast is hard to ignore. Meanwhile, Diesel Dave stayed locked into the world they built together. Dave Kiley continued driving the Brodozer into 2026, powered by a Cat C13 engine, still performing live, still carrying the diesel performance identity that defined their rise. So the picture splits completely. Two men who started in the same garage, on the same path, now living entirely different outcomes. One navigating legal fallout, financial pressure, and personal breakdown. The other continuing a version of the brand that once belonged to both of them, just without the shared center that made it what it was. And when you lay it all out, it stops feeling like separate incidents. It becomes a sequence of collisions hitting the same foundation from different angles: legal pressure, financial strain, and finally, the kind of personal collapse that doesn't make the news until it's already over. The real split happened in 2023, when Diesel Brothers walked away from Discovery Channel by choice, not as Heavy D versus Diesel Dave, but as a joint decision. So here's the question worth sitting with. Was that exit about principle, survival, or pressure they never fully explained? Drop your answer in the comments, because the story doesn't end there, and neither does the conversation.